Hi, John. Best wishes to you and everyone else in Kentucky. The weather is sunny and beautiful here, and the leaves are at their peak of color, I think. Don't have any photos for you today, but I'll try and maybe take a photo or two of some spectacular leaves for you next time I send something. As you recall, the last time I started a story called The Big Boat Race and gave you part one of that, and I went away to work out an ending for it. So let's see how that turns out, shall we? And here is part two of the big boat race. I'm sure you recall that the home ec faculty challenged the Faculty of Agriculture at the University of Manitoba to a boat race at the annual Aggie Home Ec Social and Dance. And the boat race is one of those beer drinking games. The Aggies players had just been introduced, as you recall, and there was some concern that the home ec girls had something up their sleeves. The home ec team remained in their private quarters until it was time for them to be introduced. Then, when they were introduced, they would run through a gauntlet of prim-looking home ec students dressed in hand-sewn frocks. The captain of the hurriedly put-together home ec team was Connie Crone Crawford, and she begins her introductions. She is captain because her father owns a hotel in Melita, Manitoba. Not Melita, the coffee fame, but Melita, just one T. Guess if you can't get you have to have two T's for coffee in Melita, or Melita. Well, never mind. Connie caresses the microphone sensually and says quietly, and the crowd sort of quietened down to hear her, "I will introduce the team from last to first drinker," she says. "Our fourth drinker is Pam Bonesteel. She once drank a whole beer at a birthday party and disappeared. She later came out of the closet with Margaret Vandenberg." Pam Bonesteel skips merrily through the gauntlet. The crowd murmurs. The rumors still fly. What does home ec have up its sleeve anyway? Crone Crawford's voice rises slightly. "Drinker number 3 is Mavis Pruitt. Mavis is from Balmoral, Manitoba, and I think she drank a whole beer once without getting sick." The crowd murmurs some more and shifts anxiously on their collective feet. Either home ec was going to pull a fast one on this, or this was going to be a merciless slaughter. The crowd didn't much like the thought of either scenario. But then Crone grew visibly excited and her voice got louder as she began to introduce the second drinker. "Drinker number 2 is the virgin of the home ec faculty, Virginia Creeper. Virginia is looking for a husband, and she aims to find an Aggie to be her betrothed. If home ec wins, she gets her pick of the Aggie tanks." At this point, Virginia Creeper runs through the gauntlet, and it is clear that something is amiss. Well, it is not amiss as much as it may be a mister. Virginia has a dark 5 o'clock shadow with muscles like a stevedore and a pack of cigarettes rolled up in her muscle shirt sleeve, which was tastefully midriff length, paired with a modest 3/4 length skirt. Her hair looks like dyed yarn, and, well, she looked an awful lot like a man. Those sharp-eyed Aggies spotted it right away and began to yowl. "Foul, foul, foul play," they said. "The home ec team has a ringer. She's not a girl." Crone Crawford looked the Aggies in the eye and said sternly through the microphone, "I didn't see anything in the rules about having to be a girl or a boy," she said pointedly. In the meantime, Virginia Creeper was hamming it up with anyone who would ham it up with her. The crowd was hooting and hollering. The Aggies were threatening to boycott the boat race, citing unfairness and a threat to the sanctity of the sport of boat racing. Boat racing should only ever be treated to with the greatest of respect, and they would never stoop so low as to bring ill repute to this sport of hard-working brewmasters. Smiley, the beer representative, was beside himself with his good fortune. This gig was turning into a hoot, and he began to dance suggestively and animatedly with Virginia Creeper. Crone Crawford was now shouting into the mic over the bleating of the poor deceived Aggies. And now the first drinker for the home ec boat race champions, originally born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the daughter of Joseph Schlitz of Old Milwaukee and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer brewing fame. Let's have a big hand for Betty Big Boobs Schlitz. And it was pandemonium. And when Betty Big Boobs trundled through the gauntlet, her red hair flowing over her broad shoulders, her bushy red beard showing prominently behind a small folding fan, which she held over her face, obscuring a Mona Lisa smile. Her boobs were, well, big and bouncy. Big, bouncy, and balloon-like, straining against her white sweater, her nipples standing out like the nubs of balloons when they were slightly underinflated. Smiley was really getting into it now, strutting around with Virginia Creeper on one arm and Big Betty Boobs on the other. He pushed his face between Big Betty Boobs' breasts, and the crowd went wild. Wilder than when we beat the Russians at hockey. The Aggies were absolutely beside themselves. They were fearful that home ec would defeat the vaunted Aggie boat race team, and that this would ruin their reputation, shame them forever. The Aggies threatened to boycott the boat race. They threatened to boycott club beer. They threatened to boycott Old Milwaukee, Schlitz, and Pabst beer. They threatened to boycott the home ec faculty. They threatened to boycott women who look like men. But I'm told, and this is only hearsay, that Smiley, the club beer representative, reminded them of the Aggies' contractual agreement to participate in boat races organized and sanctioned by club beer, and to drink only club beer, and in exchange, they would receive compensation equivalent to money spent on beer for practices and boat races. Some Aggies actually understand economics, when sober, and they prevailed in the hastily called negotiations. The boat race was still on. You know, John, many stories like this have endings that are anticlimactic. That's true of this one, unfortunately, as most of the climaxes occurred in the moments when Virginia Creeper and Big Betty Boobs Schlitz were introduced as part of the home ec boat race team and raised the temperature in Old Taché Hall. The boat race went ahead slightly after midnight, and the Aggies retained their right to claim that they can drink beer faster than anyone. Don't tell engineering or arts and science. But the Aggies soundly defeated the home ec squad. The Aggies' aggregate time was 14.3 seconds. That's right, 14.3 seconds to down 4 beers and quaffed it sequentially. Big Betty Boobs from the home ec team downed hers in 3.1 seconds, and that was followed by Virginia Creeper at 3.5 seconds. However, it was downhill for home ec from there. Mavis Pruitt took 3 minutes and 11 seconds to drink her beer, gagging the whole while. To this day, no one is really sure what happened that Pam Bonesteel drank her full beer. She disappeared in the celebratory craziness of the Aggie victory, and she may be back in the closet somewhere with Margaret Vandenberg. If you see her, tell her it's okay, the Aggies were going to win anyway. Now, there are many folks who don't believe that these events actually took place. Fortunately, I have evidence that Betty Big Boob Schlitz was at the annual Agriculture and Home Economics Social and Dance that evening. That's her in this photograph with the Modesty fan. And the facts of the matter are that if home economics had 2 other women as good at drinking beer as Virginia Creeper and Betty Schlitz were, history would have been made that night, and the sport of boat racing would never have been the same. As it was, Virginia Creeper, Big Betty Boobs Schlitz, and Stephen Smiley, the club beer representative, disappeared that night, never to be seen again, although there have been rumored unauthenticated sightings on the back roads near Simpsonville, Kentucky, of all places. Most others awoke the next day with severe hangover, headaches, and foggy memories of one of the strangest boat races in history. There it is, John. I swear this story is an authentic one. We all send our love. Stay strong. All the best to everyone in Kentucky. And I'll keep you up to date with another missive sometime in the near future. You take care now. Stay strong. Bye-bye.